Hey everybody, it's me. I'm back with Bob, Michael, Car Club. Today I have the keys to our Nissan GT-R. This is a car I actually really love, but why is it in the fleet? I think a couple reasons. It's not every day that Japan makes a high-strung sports car or supercar where they put the effort into it, and so I think that alone, we need to consider it. It was first released in 2010. This is a 2020 variant, but it's ultimately pretty much the same. It hasn't changed very much. And it has a lot of firsts to it. So it's one of the first cars to have a real proper sporting dual clutch gearbox in it. The way it was engineered by Nissan is quite different. So as they were building up the axles and the suspension, they loaded up the car so the geometry would be bang on the same weight as when the car is fully assembled. And I just think that they put a whole lot of effort to show off a little bit. Let's go see what it's like rather than just talk about it. All right, Bob and I are on the test track, West Side Highway, running over those expansions. If you've seen some of these, you know how they affect the cars. In the GT-R, smooth sailing, I'd say. You can certainly feel and hear the bumps, but it's ironing them out. But this isn't a review. It's not about that. It's about why we chose it. GT-R first came out in 2010. And 2010 was a pretty cool year for cars because the world was just coming out of an economic downturn where there were no good cars, and American cars were all plasticky before that. And then in 2010, cars like the GT-R started showing up. Lexus LFA was making headlines. What else we have? McLaren MP12-4C, and a classic Car Club favorite, the 458. These were all available then. And it feels like, as just someone who likes cars as an observer, it feels like a moment when automotive brands were coming out of their financial cocoon and flexing a little bit of muscle. You don't always see that from Japanese brands. Of course, they make great sports cars, Subaru, WRX, STI, Supra, but you know, GT-R, things like that, LFA, of course, certainly on a different level, where I'd say not only a brand, but also a nation was flexing a little bit. And this car, I think, was really special in 2010. Like I said, it was one of the first to really deploy a very sporting dual clutch gearbox, a whole bunch of little firsts. In fact, if you were a Nissan dealer, it didn't mean that you were going to have a GT-R to sell. You had to, or Nissan required you to invest quite a bit of money into your dealership just to have GT-Rs in the showroom. So it was a moment where the company was showing a whole lot of their engineering capabilities. And we were lucky enough to actually get it in America because the predecessors to the GT-R were legendary, the Skylines, right? Skyline GT-Rs, they never made it to America. So another reason why this is a special car to have in the Car Club, because it's part of this lineage that we didn't really get to experience. And me personally, I quite like having cars like that. Same as we have the Ford Cosworth Escort, an American car that we never had in America. And so just to see those things that were available to other places in the world, and to be able to have a taste of them like this car here. So that said, what's it like being in? First off, you'll notice it looks like a Japanese car in here. There is a lot of carbon floating around, but unlike the cars that it was put up against, and I guess still is put up against, which would be whatever Ferrari of the moment and things like that, and zero flash, which I like. I think for me, it's more about a company just making something that's pure raw power and performance, and not indulging in the European sensibilities of looking beautiful and being exquisite and jewel-like. This is a completely different thing. So the dash, and it's always been like this since 2010, is you could customize your dash infinitely and have things like oil temperature and boost and G-forces and things, and you could kind of make your own little pit box in Formula One right on your dashboard here, which gives you a sense of what this thing is about, which is ferocious speed, and even more important than straight line speed, of which it has ample amounts, is how this thing corners. We're in traffic right now, so we're not going to do any of that. I guess hold on a minute. it's quick. I'm gonna get pulled over. Yeah, so we know that, right? Everybody knows the GT-R is really fast. But what's it like? What's the experience like? I actually really like the gearbox because it still feels kind of 2010-ish. And by that I mean, when you shift up and down it, of course it's fast. And it sounds cliche to say, but it does feel quite mechanical. Even though this thing is fully loaded with computers, it's a four-wheel drive system and depends on your yaw and your angle, where the power goes, and a bunch of things that I don't comprehend. It still feels like you're working a machine, and that's quite fun. And every time you shift it, it feels like you're kind of racking around, I have to say. But it's also really happy to just be compliant, and I feel like out of all the other cars in its performance caliber, this is the most simple to drive and have fun. I'd also say, having driven one on a racetrack years ago, it'll also make you feel like a hero. They would say that a 2020 has maybe lost pace with the cars that it was compared against from the beginning, GT3s and such. And maybe that's true, but I'd also say at those finer top lines of statistics, you're not getting there anyway. I'm not driving this thing to its limit on a racetrack or on a public road, because its limit is really far out there, and it takes a particular talent. So I don't think that matters much. But what this does do is it does give you a classic supercar kind of a feel, even though it's a 2020, because it's not too dissimilar. I think every year they've been building it since 2010, they've refined it and refined it. They've made it a bit more GT-ish, and then you can get the Nismo version or the track version for just pure savagery. But I think that there's a real charming engagement to this thing. It feels like a modern day time machine. The sensation of grip is incredible. And again, like as I said, quite mechanical. Also, it's really nice to be in control of a very beautifully built Japanese engine. I'm not a really big fan of big American motors. V8s aren't necessarily my thing, or at least American ones. Certainly in a new Corvette Z06 and such, they're great, of course. I like small capacity, high power European motors, but there's something really silky about a Japanese engine. This car does command a little bit of respect from people. I've got like people in Audis and things driving in my blind spot to look at it. Like I said, it's not the prettiest thing. It's not like one cohesive design, but on the hood are NACA air intakes, and all these angles are all pushing air over that back wing. I think it's quite striking looking in its own way, but a big departure from, again, like European supercars. I'll share an opinion. It's been a little bit since I've driven a GT-R. I think this is our fourth in the fleet, certainly our third. It's been a while. This short little run we're doing is probably one of the nicest driving experiences I've had in a long time. It is so glassy and smooth. I spend most of my performance moments with vehicles on motorcycles on racetracks. And you're always trying to be so smooth with how you apply the throttle and how you apply the brakes and every single input. And this car is most like a super bike. The acceleration is mind-blowing if you want it to be, but the way it delivers it is not kind of pushing you back in your seat and all that. It does that, but it meters out the power in a really gorgeous way. Also, listen to this. Don't listen to that. Hang on. This car is kind of pissed. It feels like it's pissed, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, like if you give it some, man, it's really nice to drive slow. You can just drive it around town, but it just, oh, you know, this car is like my dog. I have a Boston Terrier, and she's a good dog, and you could go to town with her and all that, and she's just constantly restraining herself, and you can see it bubbling underneath her. She wants to run, well behaved. This is a lot like that. It's just totally well behaved. You're driving around town. It's no big thing. It's just a Nissan. It's just a car. But once you throw a ball, holy cow, this thing is explosive. Dog's also black and white as well, just like the car. Where would I take a Nissan GT-R if I was to book it for the day of the weekend from the car club? Man, there's a lot of options for this car. A track day would be a good bet. I think this around New Jersey Motorsports Park would be a treat. On road, you know, with the 458, I suggested going to the Adirondacks. We have big corners, big sweeping high gear corners. I think this would be phenomenal there. But I also think tighter little Hudson Valley roads where maybe the speed limit's only 55 or 60, especially Columbia County has like, the speed limit is always way higher than you should be going. So let's say Columbia County, just to get this thing through the corners. But when you get out of the corners, a place where you can punch it a little bit, because I think that this car is really about mid-corner to corner exit, man. It just, I think also, just drive it to work for the week. I think this would make any drive fun, and if you're in town, it's still very nice to drive. Like I said, quite compliant. And then leave work early, say you're going for lunch, fuck off and go to the roads and throw a ball for this thing so it can have some fun. That's what I think. I think drive this everywhere, every day. I'm going to rate this really high on my personal list. Not that it's a rating or a review. But man, I forgot how much I like these. It's been a real pleasure to take you for a ride in it. So that's a couple of minutes in the GT-R. Thanks for sticking around if you're still here. What I'd say is I think that GT-Rs are maybe a little forgotten about or undervalued or underappreciated, but that was some of the most fun I've had driving a car in a really long time, and it feels special. You know, those cars that have hand-built motors like this one does, made by a huge manufacturer that every now and then says, we're not going to do something huge, we're going to do something small, we're going to do it by hand, and we're going to really show what we're capable of. Man, this like, I got the fizzies still. So if you're a member, take it for a weekend, see what it's like. It might not be the obvious choice because it is Japanese and it's understated looking, but my God, in the driver's seat, this thing is just absolutely phenomenal. And all the reasons I said it belongs in a car club, it belongs here. Just sheerly the performance and the experience, the event of the drive. The event of the drive alone makes it worth it. All the other stuff is cream on top of it. But man, what a fantastic thing.